So I finally got around to watching Sinners.
Riverside,
I
Pennsylvania.
know I'm late on watching it, about 3 or 4 months, but nonetheless, I actually about a week or so ago got around to watching it, and I enjoyed it. I liked it. I can see the hype around it, and pretty good. I think it probably will be one of the best films of the year. I think it's hard to say the best film. I mean, it's only July, so there's still a lot of the year left. I wouldn't put it as the best film until about November, December-ish, more like pretty much near the end of the year. Then I would start kind of putting this up there. But after watching it, I've watched it twice now. The one thing about the film, well, there's a few things about the film that I think was kind of interesting, but the ending of the film, I think, is one of the more fascinating aspects of the film because I think that there's a kind of a glossing over by the film itself about the end of the film. And I'm not talking about the end. Heads up, there's going to be spoilers for the end of the film and post credit scenes, so just beware going forward. But I do think that the film itself kind of glosses over what happens at the end of the film, and I don't think a lot of people kind of also think about it because, and I'm not talking about the post credit scene. I mean the very end, once Remick is killed, and once Sammy goes back to the city or go back to town, and then after Smoke dies. That after the aftermath of that would be fucking insane if you really thought about it. Because what anyone just happening to come across that would see is a just like a fucking massacre of white people gunned down with all these cars. Because you gotta also remember, all the cars from the people at the juke joint are there, plus all the cars and the blown up truck from the grenade are there from the Klan showing up. Then you got all the bodies of the Klansmen laid out, gunned down. Then you got Smoke's body laid out. And then inside the juke joint, you just got a slaughterhouse of blood and guts and dead vampires. Or I don't know if you see that's something else that the film doesn't really address. Like, because they did definitely. I mean, maybe you could say that all the vampires like went back outside when Remick was, trying to get Sammy, and he was doing his kind of, monologue near the end. But I'm pretty sure, like Annie is in there, like she is just dead, laying in there with a fucking like stake pierced through her fucking chest. So you got that in there, and then the Korean or the Chinese couple, they're two charred crisp in there. So like, what would what do you make? Like, what would someone make of that? Like, I don't even know because there's no way anyone would be except for Sammy, and we don't know what Sammy did or didn't tell anybody. He probably didn't tell anybody because of just how traumatic it was. But like, how do you kind of explain that? Because there's really, without being there and without like being someone like Sammy who was there through the whole night into the morning. I don't even know what you would make of that because you, on the one hand, you could say, well, maybe it was a like a racially motivated like attack, which it was technically, but then you think, well, no, that can't be the case because the juke joint is locked shut, and then inside the juke joint is a fucking slaughterhouse with two charred, burned corpses. And so it's like, what the fuck? Like, and then also you gotta think about there is just a giant portion of the community just gone. Like between Bo and I forgot her name, but the Korean couple, their daughter, it lost both her parents. Cornbread, his wife and child. That I don't know what happened to Cornbread. And the thing is, like, I'm pretty sure most of the people there either told people or kind of at least gave people an idea of where they were going. Because at the beginning of the film, when Sammy's in the field, one of the people asked him, like, where are you going to be performing at? And she's like, or am I going to have to find out through the grapevine where you're playing at? And he doesn't really tell her. And she's like, okay, grapevine it is. So it definitely was kind of known for with people about what was going on. And so people probably were aware that people went to this juke joint, especially, in the community. And it's like, so, okay, because it's kind of hard to see, like, tell how many people were there, but I could see there was a few amount of people there, and they're all just gone. Like, and they're not just gone in the sense of disappear. Like, they're just charred corpses. And I mean, I guess maybe they just burned up to where there's nothing left of them. Because we see when Remick dies and the sun comes up, like all the vampires start to burn away. I don't buy that they would just disappear. I don't know. I just don't think it would be. I mean, I'm obviously talking about realism in a film of vampires and voodoo and supernatural, but like, I just don't think that they would just burn to a fucking cremated crisp. Like, I just don't think that would happen. But according to the movie, that's kind of what happened. Because unless Smoke got a fucking phenomenal vacuum cleaner in the 1930s and fucking vacuumed that shit up before the Klan got there, which probably didn't happen. But like, yeah, so you would have at least charred remains, this group of gunned down white men, Smoke, who's dead, and then inside you got charred corpses, a black chick with a stake stabbed through her chest, blood everywhere. Like, that whole inside the juke joint is just, it looks like a slaughterhouse, like what Stack said with Remick. Like, it ironically, even though the Klan didn't kill anybody, the juke joint ended up looking like a fucking slaughterhouse and looked more bloody than it probably would have even if the Klan showed up without the vampires. So it does look like a straight up slaughterhouse in there, and it's locked on top of that. So like, it would, I don't know, like, I just think it would be kind of interesting to see what would the community like reaction to that be. Because I mean, I don't know, I don't think that Sammy, because we don't know what Sammy did really after the film. We just know that he went back to the church, and then it fast forwards to the 90s when he's older, and when Stack and Mary come back to see him. So we really don't know what he told people, and we don't know if he talked about it. I'm willing to lean towards more that he probably didn't, because even when he's older, like about to die, he tells Stack that like he still wakes up like at least once a week, just paralyzed thinking about that. So I can imagine he probably was just very, very excited to tell people about what happened there. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that it's kind of interesting to kind of think about that situation, because even the film just kind of doesn't address that. And I mean, obviously they don't need to, because at that point, the story's wrapped up and it really isn't significant to see what would happen. But I just think, just from an in-universe like perspective, because you would think that the Native American vampire hunters, you would think that they would either have heard of what happened, or that they would have been aware, because they went to the Klan, the Klan couple's house when the sun was coming down, trying to find Remick, and then they left because the sun went down. So they knew that Remick was nearby, and I'm sure that they probably would put two and two together, that this was probably either Remick's doing or a vampire's doing of some kind, and probably would have tried to see what happened or investigate. Which also kind of, I don't know, it kind of makes me wonder how Stack and Mary survived this long, because it seems like the Native American vampire hunters, that they're pretty efficient or pretty good at hunting down vampires. Because like, if they're able to, now we don't know how they found Remick or how he ended up there. Like, that's something we don't know, but it does seem like they're pretty good at like finding vampires. So it's kind of interesting that somehow for 60 plus years, I mean, maybe Stack and Mary, they just were that good at avoiding, vampire hunters. We don't know, but I don't know. Like, I feel like that would be cool, because people, they've been talking about like a sequel to Sinners or a prequel, and honestly, I think really there shouldn't be either. Like, I think it would be nice just to have a film that's just a film. Like, it's not a franchise. It's not a stepping stone for a blockbuster. It's just an original film, and that's it. I would enjoy that, and maybe it will be, but as of right now, obviously it just came out a few months ago, but there probably will be a follow up, and I hope, if there is, which there probably will be, I hope it kind of focuses on the aftermath of this event, because I feel like there's just like the in-universe theorizing, especially in the 1930s, like pre-technology, pre-anything, like, back then, obviously, people were already very, superstitious and very, had their own kind of mythologies of how the world worked. So you can only imagine what a situation like that would kind of make. And also, just like from a community perspective, like, so many people would be affected. Like, Cornbread's wife, and now Cornbread's wife doesn't have a husband, and now she has to take care of a kid. The Korean girl, I don't know. I think they're Korean, but their daughter, that she's like 14, 15, and she has to have, she's left alone and has these two stores on the black and white side of town that she has to deal with. And then you got all the other people in there who probably had wives and husbands. Like, we know Perline, she had a husband. So Perline doesn't know what the fuck happened to her, what the fuck happened to his wife. And I'm sure the other people in there had, husbands and wives and children and families, and they don't know what the hell happened. And then if they do find the remains, they're not going to be like, no one's going to be able to figure out what happened here, because if you just happened to show up there, like, even if some white people who showed up knew what the Klan were going to do, they wouldn't really know what happened either, because they'd be like, well, how did this one black guy take out all these, this whole clan, this whole group of Klansmen? But then also, why is the juke joint locked with just a slaughterhouse in there of just blood and guts and shit, with like dead people in there and burned bodies? Like, what the hell happened in there? And they probably would find the burned remains of the vampires and like that. I don't know, like, there's just so much that would be, I think, is interesting. That'd be cool to kind of just see from an in-universe perspective, because and I haven't really seen people talk about that, really. Like, I've seen a few comments talk about this, but I don't know, like, I think it's just kind of interesting to kind of consider, like, how much is kind of packed into the ending that's just kind of glossed over, and we just kind of fast forward to the end. But also, one other thing I want to talk about before wrapping this up is the whole vampire concept of Sinners, because that's one of the main points. And I feel like the vampire aspect, for a while, was done good, because how I and other people kind of perceived the film and how the vampire aspect worked is that they were kind of like a hive mind. Like, Remick, he was the leader, and like all the other vampires were kind of like pretty much like puppets, or like a hive, or like he knew all their memories, he knew like everything about them. They could talk like them, act like the people to a degree, but they all did what he wanted to. And that made sense. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. That's kind of somewhat unique take. But then the post-credit scene happens, and then we see that 60 years later, that Stack and Mary are still alive. And not only are they alive, but then it turns out that Smoke spared Stack and made him promise that he would leave Sammy alone, that he wouldn't come after him or wouldn't bother him or anything like that. And to me, that is such a straight, that to me, not it doesn't ruin the film, but it really kind of makes the whole vampire thing kind of shaky, because it's like, well, okay, why would Stack do that? Like, I mean, because no other vampire besides Stack does that. Like, we never see like Bo, the husband of the Korean lady. Like, he never once kind of shows a humanity of himself, or kind of has like a recollection of like, oh, this is my wife. Like, I actually like don't want to fucking kill her. I don't want to kill my daughter. Like, he's like completely, subjugated by Remick. And we never see anyone else have this kind of individualism when they get turned into a vampire. They all seem to kind of become this like just blank hive for Remick to control however he wants to. But then, like, we see Stack, somehow he's able to like not only become independent as a vampire while Remick is still alive, because some people said, well, it's because Remick died. It's like, well, no, Remick was still alive when Smoke and Stack had their fight. Like, Smoke is the one that killed Remick, and that was after he had his fight with Stack. So Stack was alive, and Mary, they were both very well alive, and not like, doing this after. So I don't know. It kind of brings into question, like, is there like kind of workarounds to the vampires? Like, is it a thing where if you have a strong family bond or a strong relationship bond, that like it can kind of break you out of the hive mind, or it can kind of pull out your humanity? Because the way that Mary and the way Stack are portrayed in the post-credit scene is very fucking distinctively different from how they were when they became vampires. Like, when Mary became a vampire, she was just a straight vampire. Like, she had the glowing white eyes, and she was like, we're gonna kill all of you, kill every single one of you here. And was just gleeful about killing all of them. And, they not once did Mary and them really show any type of like independent humanity. Like, I mean, you could say when Annie died, they, were pretty upset about that. And Stack was upset about that because he wanted Annie to become a vampire with the four of them. But that also, I mean, I kind of contributed that to Remick by extension controlling Stack, wanting everyone to be this collective family unit. So I mean, yeah, that it was in character for Stack to kind of want to do that, and for Mary to have the reaction, but also it's also what Remick would kind of want too, because he makes it a big point throughout the film of like how he wants to have like this unified family, and he wants his family back. So like it's something that I could see Remick trying to, through Stack, control and manipulate Smoke into becoming a vampire, because that's one thing Remick is pretty good at. Like, he's very good at trying to figure out what people on an individual level, what they like, what they don't like, what they love, what they don't love, how to use their hatred, their fears to kind of get what he wants. He's pretty good at that. And I felt like that was kind of what he was doing by controlling Stack to a degree. Is like trying to get, because we see that earlier when Remick and Stack and them kind of revealed a whole clan plot to kill all the people at the juke joint the next morning, where he's trying to use like we're brothers and we're inseparable and there's no me without you and I'm not doing this without you. Is very manipulative because it's something that he knows would work to get Smoke to come outside and become a vampire. So yeah, that to me that was strange. I just think it was just kind of weird how those two specifically are able to just be very strangely different from all the other vampires. And I guess you could argue that we never really, besides the Korean couple, we never really see any other vampires interact really with anyone that they have like a strong personal relationship with. Like, we never see Cornbread interact with his wife, or any of the other vampires like have to consistently really interact with people that they're close to. So we don't really know. Maybe this is something that's like kind of common of all the vampires, like, maybe like a family or romantic or personal relationship could be enough to kind of break people out of it. But I don't know. I felt like that part of the vampirism was just not done well. I feel like near the end of the film, it kind of switched. And I think it was done that way just so that Stack and Mary didn't come off as straight villains. Because, like, if they showed up 60 years later, like the same, demonic, bloodthirsty monsters that they were in, the 1930s, well, first of all, Samuel would have been fucked. But otherwise, like, it wouldn't have worked. They couldn't have had the emotional ending with, Stack and Sammy and Mary all talking and reminiscing about the good old days, and, Stack giving the speech about how, the last time he saw his brother and the sun come up. You couldn't have done that. So I get why, but I just feel like the film kind of just fell apart with the vampire aspect near the end. And when the post-credit scene came on, I was like, I really don't get how the vampires work in this universe. But, maybe there's something I'm missing, but after watching it 2 times, I still kind of think that the vampire aspect was kind of the weakest part of it, especially near the end of it. But, not much else to say, really. I just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on this after watching it, because I like the film, but I had some thoughts about the ending of it, and then also the whole vampire aspect, which is like one of the main points of it. But, not much else to say, really. So I think I'm going to call the day here, and I'll see you people later.